Hi guys, welcome back to Into the Light, a different life story, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. First things first, a bit of housekeeping. Down there is that big subscribe button. Press it. It's really, really cool because then you don't miss any of these fantastic interviews. Because in this show, we bring on guests who have often gone through hell and kept going and are now transformed and living lives that are so beautiful that really it's hard to stop them in their enthusiasm to just love themselves and live their own authentic life. And that is something I was missing when I was certainly in the depth of depression and alcohol and when I was not the man that I am nowadays. So you've got all these beautiful people coming onto my show. You would be silly not to subscribe to find out more. Come on, do it. You can do it. It's one press. Cool. Today we have got Lauren Burnison here. And Lauren is just a fantastic guest. And why? Because she has created the first UK travel agency that focuses on people who don't want to get completely plastered, go to Spain and say, oh, I had some good times. I just can't remember them. But I've got good pictures. Hey. So, Lauren, thank you so much for coming onto my show. I need to explore your story far more in detail.
Hi, Stefan. Thanks for having me.
An absolute pleasure. And please, I mean, I'm German, you're a UK, and there certainly in the 80s, I had my fair share of holidays to Spain, where you essentially go there to escape reality, to drink as much as you want, and to mix and mingle with either the opposite sex or the same sex if you're attracted to that, doesn't matter. Basically, what happens in Loretta Mar stays in Loretta Mar, kind of a thing. So, been there, done that. That was typical travel as far as I was concerned as a younger man. I would have never even thought about a place that is creating travel adventures for people who don't want to get pissed. So there must be a story there, Lauren. I mean, how did you think about this venture? What is your own story that essentially led you to that realization?
Well, the whole idea actually ties in very closely to my own story. So I, like you, not just in holiday, but in all aspects of my life, had been burning the candle at both ends, let's say, and that's conservative, for many years, really. And I suppose my initiation to that was when I was about 18 years old. I was heading off to South America, to Argentina, to do some volunteering work after my A-level exams, and things didn't really pan out the way I thought they would have. I'd already gone through a bit of a sort of rebellious teenage time. You know, I wasn't really coping emotionally with the things life was throwing at me. And so I got to go away to Argentina, and the volunteering didn't work out. And instead, I ended up staying there on a 6-month bender of epic proportions, getting up to all sorts of mischief, as you can imagine. And I really got a taste for that kind of escapism which you can get from drugs and alcohol. And since then, it was a kind of downhill journey for me. I always loved traveling. So I managed to incorporate this love of getting totally wrecked and self-destruction into the travels. And in my mind, I was going places and getting to know the culture. And I suppose in a way you could say that I was, because I would stay in kind of, usually for me, the more dangerous the country, the better. And I was staying with local people. I was hanging out with local people. And in my mind, I thought, oh, this is great. I'm really getting to experience what it's like. But it was just a section of that society. And things went on like that for me for quite a while, right through my 30s. I did a very similar thing in South Africa. I went to Cape Town, where I thought I'd go and party there for 6 months. And it just got exponentially worse. And these are not the kind of places that you want to be getting into, taking hard drugs, waking up in random places. And yeah, so it all came to a head for me when I was living and working in South Korea. I decided to go there in 2015. I'd been back in the UK for a while. That's what I used to do. I would go away and stay for a while until I ran out of money, until I couldn't take it anymore psychologically, physically. Then I'd come back and save a little bit of money, and then I'd head away again. So I decided to go to Korea to teach English. And I just started hanging around, getting involved with the wrong type of people, let's say. And it just went from bad to worse. And I made the decision to quit drinking one weekend. I really thought something has to change here because, I could envision myself in 10 years down the line, and I just didn't like what I saw. And so I decided to quit drinking one weekend. And you know how it is. You don't decide for the entire rest of your life because that's just way too daunting. I decided I wouldn't do it for the next few days. And then since then, I just haven't looked back, really. That's the before I quit kind of part in a nutshell.
Which is, of course, an interesting life. It is, I live part of my life in a similar way, and it is, you're in a different country there, and this was a time when there were no cameras on cell phones. So basically, I had some beautiful times, some dodgy times, dangerous times, but these were my times. These are things that where you and I had our adventures. We were young, we were bulletproof. We were, in my case, full of testosterone. I don't know what hormones rode you, but we are not really thinking clearly. We are just thinking selfish and completely, give me this life, give it to the fullest. And you turned out to be a super responder to dopamine. So any drug that you take or any alcohol that you take, don't just say, that tastes nice. You say, yeah, give me more of that. And that's a superpower. Yeah. That's our superpower that we have got. We have got that dopamine response. But it's a superpower that can easily burn us, as you have experienced and I have experienced. I, like you, found myself in interesting places at times and not remembering too much. Were there any near calls? Were there any near where you thought, shit, I really got away with that one?
Yeah, quite a lot, I suppose. At one point, I remember I was in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and it was New Year's Eve. And a big party had been happening, and I managed to get lost. And this is like I said, a kind of a rough area in Buenos Aires, and you wouldn't really there was no other tourists around there. And I found myself at one point running down the street. I was being chased by two local hard dolls, one of them who had a broken bottle in her hand. I'd taken so much Coke that day that my mouth was, you can only imagine how bloody dry that was. And it was like something from a movie. I was like, what am I doing here? How the heck did this happen? I'm from Northern Ireland. I'm an 18-year-old girl. What am I doing? There was a massive street brawl. That's what it was. I got caught up in a huge street brawl and ended up getting lost. And it was just insanity. Yeah. So that was one of the earlier moments, but there's definitely been more.
Yeah. Oh, please, yes. I remember we had quite a good time in our bars in Heidelberg, and we were sort of, at times we were sort of part of the furniture there. And I remember one night waking up literally behind the bar. So the bar staff kindly had just placed me down, lying behind the beer kegs there. And it was 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, what the hell? where am I? And I was in this bar still. So they had closed the round behind me. Yeah, took care of me, laid me down, put a jacket over me, and they kept the back door open, which had sort of a safety thing so I could get out. And I thought, okay, maybe that's not supposed to happen. And God, it is. And I got away with shit. And it was different times. And then sometimes I wish I had not gotten away with it. Sometimes I wish I had an earlier warning, but the reality was these were still the quotation mark, good times, wild times, the stuff that you can brag about amongst your so-called peers. But then at some stage you actually come sooner or later to an awakening. And you pointed already towards it. It was not just on the holidays that you did that. It was not just on a Saturday night that I did that. No, very soon, our lack of coping, our lack of ability to deal with emotions led us to basically try to numb ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
When did that start to happen with you?
Do you mean when did I start to wake up out of it, or when did I start to really get in?
How long were you really in the darkness? How long were you really in the times that you maybe regret?
Well, I suppose so. When I was 18 then, and I went to Argentina and got a taste for uppers, and which was my favorite thing because I could escape who I was, because ultimately I just didn't like who I was. And I was a little bit reserved, actually. And for some reason, I thought that was a flaw. I thought that was something that I shouldn't have been. And so, when you take uppers, you just become a totally different person, and you don't give a crap, and you say what you want, and you're really outgoing. So I really took to that. And even alcohol would give me that really up feeling, make me really, really hyper right until the end. But so that started. I mean, I've smoked a bit of weed in my teens before that, quite a bit actually, and continued to my early 20s and then dropped that. But it would have been from I was 18 right up until I was about 32 in Korea when I eventually quit, when I just literally couldn't take it anymore. Also because in South Korea, they don't really have a recreational drugs culture. It's all booze, really, for regular people compared to other countries. So whereas before I'd be doing a bit of both, and maybe, it wasn't so obvious that I was doing a lot of one or the other, even though I was doing a lot of both compared to most people. But when I went to Korea, and the focus was mainly on the alcohol, and that's when you get the blackouts, and that's when you get, I don't know, it's a different kind of thing, different kind of implications. And that's when I really, really noticed it. I could stay up all night drinking and have a small sleep, and then just basically drink all weekend. And I was feeling it in my body, having various different symptoms, and just getting into real mischief and trying to hold on a job as well as a teacher. And in a school, it was just a disaster, an absolute disaster. So from 18 right through to 32, thankfully, I feel lucky actually that I was able to quit at that time.
You focused on the quitting, and for that, please let me commend you and all of those of you who are listening who have just quit. Let me send you a huge hug and a huge bolt of energy, of lightning, and say, yeah, you did it. Yes. But there is a reason that we drink. You alluded to it. You were saying you didn't like the girl who you were, which is always astounding to me, because virtually every single guest I look at and I must say, actually, I mean, look at you, Lauren. You're a stunning, beautiful woman. You're just gorgeous. And I know I meet the Lauren now. I accept that. And maybe the Lauren previously was not the same Lauren. I give you that. Yet, at the same token, you needed to address the demons. There was a reason that you were escaping. How did you manage that? I cannot imagine that in South Korea there are English-speaking psychologists falling from the trees and be ready to help you. So how the hell did you actually stop drinking and then stay dry without addressing the reasons that made you drink?
Well, I think that, to be honest, is an ongoing journey throughout your whole life. What I found was whenever I quit, and I'm sure you can relate to this, I was faced with this identity void. I was like, who am I? Because for so long I had identified with this person and I don't want to label myself and say I'm going to be like this forever, but historically I've been, one or the other kind of polarized thing going on. And so I really identified with that party person. I thought, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly. And that was my identity for so long. So whenever I quit in Korea, that was really the time for me to try and work out, what did I like? What things did I like to do? Who was under all of this, hiding? And
exactly.
And when I started to become familiar with that Lauren, that's when I started to look into the other side of things. And okay, let's think about actually why was I feeling that way about myself? I'm very interested in psychology and different types of therapy, and that's still an ongoing thing for me. So yeah, that's something I'm dealing with more now.
You're talking so out of my soul. You could have, it is spooky because you chose exactly the same words as I have chosen many times before. Ultimately, I was an empty shell. There was nothing there. There was nothing that I could say, who am I? I had no answer to that. You, and a void, a vacuum of, there was nothing. What was the first thing that you tried to put into that empty vessel? What was the first thing where you tried to figure out who you are?
Well, what I did was I sat down and thought, okay, what things do I like to do? And I knew I liked cooking, I knew I liked languages, and I knew I liked outdoor stuff, but I'd never really done a lot of it because I was always bloody hungover. So, you just don't get around to that stuff when you're
no, you can't go running because you spill your drink. That is just, it's logic.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So I did those things. I really got stuck into the culture. I learned Korean to, intermediate level. I went to Korean cooking classes. Just today I was cooking some Korean food. And I bought a bike and I decided to cycle down the east coast of Korea in August, which was, I think, only a mad person would do that. The humidity, I'm sure in East Asia in August is something else. And I think I nearly died of heat stroke actually on that trip. But those are some of the things that I did to try and get back to me. And that ultimately led me to what I do now with this, which is this travel business, which is all about showing people, sharing exploration and culture, and getting people to push themselves out of their comfort zone.
Beautiful. And the reason I love that so much is because as alcoholics and as druggies, we have forgotten what sober fun is. And maybe we have never learned it even. So sober fun was the weirdest concept I had ever heard about when I went into rehab. And every Tuesday night was compulsory. We go out tonight and have fun night. And I thought, we are in rehab. What do you mean we have fun? What the heck? Is there another side to rehab here? And yes, there was another side. And as basically at 7 o'clock, there was all kind of travel arrangements were being made, typically longer standing dry alcoholics and people in rehab, shall I say, in recovery, picked us up. And then we went bowling. And it was such a bizarre thing. because I would have never bowled, well, for a long time, not bowled without having a beer or 15 there and having fun. And yet suddenly there was this mandatory, we're going to go out and have fun without alcohol. And it was this, I was forced to do it. And suddenly I realized by doing so, I had fun last night. And that was bizarre. That was bizarre. So my rehab was really, really good from that angle to teach us the micro habits that are there. And that's exactly what you are doing with your current venture. And for that, wow, this is so brilliant. This is so brilliant. And therefore, I love it that We Love Lucid, your travel company, has come into existence to exactly showcase that and actually say, hey, you can have a good time. You were there in a foreign country. Were you alone at that time, or did you have a partner?
I was alone. Yeah.
So therefore, that is a blessing in disguise, because you can make the changes and you are not bound to someone who maybe was facilitating your drinking or facilitating your using. Because typically we surround ourselves with people who are the same ilk as us. So that was a blessing in disguise. At the same token, it is a lonesome place to be. So it is. How did you deal with that? How did you deal with that? Nearly insurmountable task, because for 15 years you have done nothing else, and now you make that call. This is scary. This is a huge mountain. That's Mount Everest and then some to climb. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a really good point, because when I look back, sometimes I just wonder how the heck I was able to do that. But what I really did was I was actually so disgusted at how things had, how badly things had really turned out for me, or the chaos that I was attracting into my life, should I say, that I stopped going to bars at all. I didn't want to know. I got the bike. I did that kind of stuff. I stayed in my apartment a lot. I read many books about North Korea. I got involved in an organization which teaches English to North Koreans, and just really focused on hobbies and those kinds of things. It was the loneliest period of my life. I'd have to say that. I didn't know about all of these. I'm not even sure if they would have existed back then, to be honest, but all of the social sober networks and things like that, I just didn't know anything about them. And I literally thought that I was the only person on this planet, girl my age, going through what I was going through. I just got through it day by day, and weekend by weekend. And as time went on and I started to really reap the benefits from this new life and these new experiences, I realized, and I reckon a lot of people, probably maybe more people that used to be really into drugs, they still really like that kind of rush. So I'm quite into adrenaline sports now. And I first worked this out when I was on my bike. I couldn't, anytime I got on the bike, I was like lightning down the road, and I was like, yes, love this. This is amazing. And so that's really helped me as well. Adventure sports, that kind of thing, rally. I want to really learn how to rally drive properly. And so that's a bit of a substitute for me. But how did I deal with the loneliness? It was just one day at a time. It really was. And some kind of strength from somewhere. I honestly just don't know sometimes. I'm just grateful that life that somehow did give me this strength to continue. It's hard to explain.
Sometimes you don't need as much strength. You need just enough strength to admit that you're knee deep in shit, which you did, and then to try to find help. To do it all yourself was a huge challenge to yourself, and I'm amazed that you managed to do it. Most people will fail with an approach like yours, and that is because there is so much going on in our subconscious level that makes us drink, that ultimately you're destined to fail. That's a fact, because you started around about 18. I probably started about the same age getting seriously involved, which means that emotionally we stopped developing at that level. So ultimately, you were a 33-year-old in a 17, 18-year-old mind, or had a 18-year-old mind in a 33-year-old body. And so therefore, you have not learned the coping mechanisms. You have not learned how to deal with negative emotions. All those things, especially 20, 30 years back, there was not such an education at school. There was no emphasis on that in private life. In my upbringing, it was normal to drink. It was normal. It was not normal to use. That was probably not so common in Germany, although obviously underneath the surface there was a lot going on. But no, the alcohol was normal, part and parcel, and it is normal. It was normal for me. So therefore, when I should have sought help many, many times earlier, but I was not ready. Finally, my wife made the decision for me, and for that I love her to bits, to actually get me voluntarily admitted to a rehab hospital. And it was only then that someone actually literally peeled my eyes open and said, this is how life can be. And that was the most beautiful thing. But then thereafter, I started a journey that I'm still on, 7 years down the line. Alcohol plays zero role in my life. There's not even urges or things like that anymore. But I'm still struggling with dealing with my emotions, with the anxiety, the PTSD, and all these kind of things are there. I'm much better today, but I'm better today because I got the help from a number of life coaches, a number of psychologists, etc. Did you get finally the chance, once you returned after South Korea, once you returned? I mean, you basically went from alcohol to distraction to a little bit finding yourself, but it's like you using a supercomputer and have no idea about a manual. You try a bit that. Oh, exercise feels good. Oh, good. We do exercise. And then food makes me feel, oh, that's good. We do a bit more food. I learned to, so you're trying. But when did you have a chance to start exploring more? Did you go into an AA system or smart recovery or anything like that? People who have been where you want to be and are even further down the path.
So I didn't go into any kind of program. I'd actually, before I quit, I was already dabbling a little bit in different forms of spirituality and self-development, although that was kind of hard to keep going because when you're hungover, you don't give a crap about anything. And even the stuff that could be so important to you in a normal day, you just don't give a shit. You just want to get food so that you can try and make yourself feel better that way. And so it's kind of hard to have a continued practice in any of those things. So whenever I quit, that's when I really started to follow certain teachers, a lot of YouTube videos and things like that I would watch that really made me start to think about who I was, what my purpose was and place was in this world. And of course, the whole psychology kind of side of things as well is very interesting for me. And that's something that it's daily work. And although I don't go to AA, there's a lot of parallels and similar things that they do there, which I would do on my own on a daily basis.
And I'm so pleased for you that worked out for you. I think if you were to say, well, if I want to create a successful business, there are ways of just giving it a shot, or there are ways of basically trying to get a mentor, trying to get someone who has created that business before and can guide me. So I guess the same thing, you've got a chance of it succeeding both ways. I think in general terms, what I want to say to the people listening here is I would have never been able to do it alone, because I didn't realize what I didn't know. I thought I knew it all. I'm a doctor, please. I know it. And I had this grasp of psychology. I could see a depression a mile away in any of my patients. PTSD, I could read people like a book. Look at myself. Fuck. My mask was so big, I couldn't see behind my own bloody eyes. I had no clue what was going on in me. And that was the amazing thing with hindsight, which still blows me away, that I could be quite a good doctor and a very sensitive doctor and an empathic doctor. Yet when it came to actually my own environment, seeing what is happening in my parents, my wife, my children, myself, I was the biggest bumbling idiot. And I think that's where I needed to help. And that's what I want to say. It is sometimes more important what you don't say than what you say. And whilst you might focus on something in your journey of of finding yourself, then this is only what you're actually focusing on. You don't realize that you have actually not dealt with the belief system that is underlying everything, or you have not dealt with many things that you can't see, because it's just, and it's that thing. So, and I think that is, in all fairness, that is something that is more coming to me now, 7 years down the line. So like you, I'm on my journey and I'm far from finished, but I suddenly realize, hang on, there are some things that I clearly still have not mastered. There's still shit going on in my life, whilst I respond to 80, 90% in a very different way, and I'm cool and all fine and I'm happy, and things that would have previously absolutely reduced me to tears, I now shrug off and say, well, nothing I can do about that, but I can do something about that. So that's cool. But there are still times when I'm struggling big time. Yeah. And so I think we need all that help. And Lauren, if you are finding yourself, and this is so beautiful to see, and you're making such great progress, because otherwise you wouldn't be here on my show. You would be still probably hiding. Addiction is hiding. Addiction is being in the shadows. And here you are being able to calmly talk to me about that, and being there for a role model for people out there who can see themselves in you. So Lauren, I'm getting freaking goosebumps, literally, to see you being there and actually now focusing on this beautiful sober fun, on this beautiful exploration of travel. So I need to know more about your travel. Now it will be a long time until I head back to the UK. We are still COVID-free here in New Zealand. Exactly. We are probably the only country in the freaking world. And it's only a matter of time until COVID will breach our borders. So it is. So traveling at the moment, not so much. And that then, of course, raises the question, how are you doing as a travel company at the times of lockdown and COVID in the UK?
Well, fortunately, because I started off in 2019, I was still small enough to be able to react quickly. My business was small enough to be able to react quickly to what happened. I didn't have a lot of staff on board, and I didn't have investors, things like that. So for me, I just thought, right, what can I do here? What can I do with what I've got? I had international trips planned, alcohol-free trips planned, and I basically decided to keep them all in the UK this year. And, there are many great benefits to that. It gets the word out quite a lot more in the UK sober community. People get to explore. I mean, we were talking before about exploring your own country, but people get to explore parts of the UK, where these staycations that they haven't before. And so actually, I'm doing quite well at the minute. I'll have about 6 trips on this year, starting from next week. We've got some skydiving, booze-free skydiving, right up until New Year's Eve. So yeah, things It's also to do with the belief and the mindset, to be honest, Stefan, because part of my own growth has really propelled me down that path of this knowing, just a knowing that things, no matter what happens, are going to work out okay. And I believe that with all my heart. And even though, times can be tough, I really do. I let go of a lot of things now that I used to worry about in the past, And
that's a beautiful thing with us survivors. We are survivors we have gone through a lot of shit and are still doing it. Therefore, once you actually come to that point, there's a serenity coming over you because, there was certainly the start of this year, virtually every day there was another catastrophe around me in the lives of people that touched my life, etc. And I just, from down then, I looked up to the gods in the pantheon up there and think, really? Really? Now? Again? We just did that yesterday. Oh, no? You've got a variation of that? Thank you. And it's that kind of a fuck. But yeah, as you say, we are survivors. And that makes you, that's a superpower that comes from the superpower of being a dopamine super responder. So you have gone through more shit than many other people. And that makes you unique. And that makes you that strong woman that is looking into this camera and says, actually, COVID? Yeah, sure. Okay. Let's just adapt and survive. That is what survivors do. And think about it. The UK must be similar to us in New Zealand or to me. I never explored Germany. I never explored the places where I was. It was always the grass is greener on the other side. So, and for us New Zealand here, it's much easier to jump in a plane. 3 hours later, my feet are in the sand in Fiji, or I'm on the Sunshine Coast or Surfers Paradise in Australia. It's actually easier for me to get to there than to get to the South Island of New Zealand. Therefore, to now be in a COVID environment where suddenly there are no more tourists, of foreign tourists in our country, and suddenly you don't want to go somewhere else. You actually explore your own backyard, and that's bloody gorgeous. There are actually so many nice, cool things to do, and especially when there are not busloads of Chinese and Korean tourists are actually standing in front of you. So there are some benefits to that. So what are some of the things that you have done? So what were the focus of your trips? What did you do? I know you have turned a bit the adrenaline junkie. So is it, let's practice knife throwing and chainsaw juggling, shall we? What do you do?
Well, I have to also be mindful that a lot of people wouldn't be into that kind of stuff, even though down the line I'd like to do some separate trips which are more focused on the adrenaline stuff. The skydive's a bit of an experiment and it actually sold out. So so that's interesting. But so on all of the trips, all of the activities that we do are totally suitable for people who haven't done them before. So we do things like whitewater rafting, canyoning.
Beautiful.
On the ski trip we've got coming up in February, we're going to do moonlight snowshoeing.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes, just really memorable experiences that you don't need experience to do. And it's all about just getting people just to try. I know it sounds so cliche, but to push themselves that little bit, try something different, because I just know how rewarding that is and how that is so good for the confidence, which is exactly what people need who all of a sudden have no hobbies and need to try, trying to change their life.
Wow. How long are your trips? What is sort of the typical length, distance?
Yeah, so usually the international ones would be 4 to 7 days. Well, that's within Europe. We're thinking about going to Maldives next year, though they would be a bit longer, maybe 10 days. But the UK ones are generally three nights, a little bit shorter. The groups be about 14 people in each group, and you've got a mixture there of people who are completely sober like ourselves, but also sober curious. I want to give people who who are interested in this kind of lifestyle change, that they maybe haven't, incinerated the candle at both ends like we did, but they just know that they could have a better life. And I want to make these kind of trips accessible for them. So that's basically, those are the trips in a nutshell. And it's just about the connection as well. I mean, people bond so well.
Exactly right. And that it is, in my rehab, one of the most important places in rehab was the jacuzzi, was the spa. And that was in the center of the bloody rehab. And it was this huge, huge spa. Could probably sit 12 people or so, easy, comfortable, with 4 massive lions spouting water in there. And it was, what the fuck, when you first walked in there. But that and the smoker's corner, that was where the real therapy happened, because people started opening up and were talking. And that is exactly what you can do. You actually are suddenly sober curious, and you can sit down with someone who is living a beautiful life and say, how did you do that? As you know? And this is where the talking starts, the human connection. That's where the hiding stops. You are allowing people to step out of their little cave and gently explore in a safe environment how it would feel like to be the real you. Now that's powerful shit. That is wow. And that's I'm so pleased to hear that happening, that focus is out there, and that you're spelling it out, and that you're making sobriety fun. And that is the key to it. I'm so pleased. I'm actually a bit pissed off that I'm sitting here in New Zealand and can't actually come to you and do stupid things like, hey, let's bike the Hadrian Wall or something like that. It is, there are enough things that you have no doubt in your mind already planned and thinking about, okay, how do we do it now that the whole country is more or less vaccinated? I'm excited for you. I'm so excited, because there's no doubt that your company will grow, blossom, and expand, and that many people will have a chance to feel the freedom of a lucid holiday, where they have got the pictures and the memories, because they actually can remember what happened.
Exactly. And, you made a really good point there about the freedom, and you talked about authenticity. When people come on these trips, they don't have to hold up that sort of guard, that sort of superficial thing that you end up doing when you're having drunk conversations. It's not really you. That disappears really quickly. And people just love that opportunity to be themselves. And it's definitely something that's been a huge part of my journey. And that's ultimately where I'm heading, because for such a long time, I just never felt that I could be myself. And so as time goes on, and as I do these kinds of podcasts, these are all really good opportunities for me as well, just to be okay with who I am. And the trips really reflect this as well. And there's actually studies out there that show that when people try new things together, because of the shared vulnerability, that they bond much quicker. And so that's a whole other layer to what I'm doing as well. I know for a fact on this skydiving trip, because people will be crapping themselves because lots of people haven't skydived before.
Of course.
I know there will be some strong bonds made on that trip, more than some of the others. And it's really an exciting thing to be part of. Isn't
it? It is. And to a certain degree, you are giving back. And by giving back, that is a powerful validation, I guess, for yourself. You have suddenly become you've transformed from this insecure young teenager who didn't find her place, who had no clue who she wanted to be when who she wanted to be, full stop, to now a woman who is saying, you know what, I change lives. What do you do when you're at work? Huh? I mean, at some stage, your little one will say, Mommy, what do you do at work? And you can say, I change lives. I make people's lives better. Now, that is a damn good legacy whenever I looked at something. So, wow.
I mean, you kind of lose sight. You know, when you get bogged down in the daily running of a business, you often lose sight of that side of it. And it's only usually when I go on the trips, which I'll be stepping back from now. I've got other people running the trips for me. But when I go on the trips, that's when I really just notice how rewarding they really are, and the fun that people have. And that's what really keeps me going, because it's just so clear when you're there. But I'm good. Thanks for mentioning that, because I do tend to forget about that whole side of it, you know, when you're just thinking about the marketing and all these sorts of things.
Of course. That's exactly where I find myself in my show. So sometimes I was sitting here and think, oh, for crying out loud, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. In 2 hours, I have to go to work to do a full days of work. And then in the evening, I need to do other things. And God, that's a 16-hour day. Are you really, why the hell do you do that? Because I meet wonderful people like you who make me think, who make me feel. You made me feel things today that I actually had not felt for a long time. You brought back memories in my mind where I have to say, good memories, bad memories, they are memories. They are there. That was my past. And I greet them and say, hello, memories. Interesting how you make me feel today compared with then. And so I have grown in the time right now, spending time with you. I have grown, I've changed. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful. And that smile that just crept on my face there is a very true smile. It is actually a smile which is cheesy but full of joy, full of I just feel I've grown. And this is wonderful. This is wonderful. And that's exactly what you do. This is exactly why you have transformed, and why you've taken this little budding idea and have transformed that into a business that now is helping others. And I have no doubt you will explode. You will go bigger, and you will do it. And you will do it because you have got your heart set in the right way. Your moral compass is there, set in the right way. And that is beautiful. And the need is out there. And there is a market out there. Believe me. No. Yours is fantastic. Lauren Burnison, a woman who soon cannot be held back, unless, of course, the mummy brain kicks in. Because Lauren, you're hiding it well, but Lauren is actually, there are two people there doing this interview today. It looks like free, but So I wish you a very safe delivery, and I wish you at least a little bit of sleep over the next few months. But don't forget your Exactly. And that is what life is all about. It throws you new adventures, and you have gone through so much already. So it is now you can live this adventure in a sober state. You're not trying to escape from it, but you can actually allow yourself to feel it and to live it and to love it. The good times and the bad times, no doubt. And I'm so pleased for you. I'm so pleased for your transformation. I'm so grateful that you came today onto my show. So if people want to get hold of you, how is the best way that they can find you, and that they might say, "Ooh, I want to be part of that adventure"?
Yeah, so all of our information about our trips is available on our website, which is welovelucid.com. And you can also get in touch with us there via email. And also on Instagram, quite busy on Instagram these days. Facebook, not so much. But yeah, if anybody has any questions or anything they'd like to ask, feel free to reach out. I do a bit of writing as well about my my experiences, travel experiences before and after quitting, which is some of them are quite gnarly and interesting. They're both very different. So you can also access those through my personal Instagram, which is Sober and Smashing It.
Exactly. And that is beautiful. Lauren, thank you for this lovely interview. Thank you for coming onto my show. Thank you for giving hope to people out there and proving to people that there is a life, that there's fun after alcohol, that there's fun after drugs. We just need to learn how to live that. And it will not be the first time. So when you do it the first time, guys, you might not necessarily feel as much, because you have depleted your response to normal things completely. There is no drug involved, therefore you don't feel it yet. I remember 6-7 months down the line after stopping drinking, I bought strawberries from a street vendor, and I had a strawberry and I suddenly thought, wow, this is the best strawberry I've ever had in my life. What is that? What? And it was a normal strawberry, for fuck's sake. It was basically, finally, my brain had learned to put emphasis on the right now, right here. And this is a strawberry that you should actually enjoy. And that was 6-7 months. Okay. So if you try one thing and you say, see, I had no fun. I proved to you, see, it doesn't work having sober fun. Just give it another shot. And
just keep going,
Exactly. And maybe go on a trip with some people. And actually, you might find that you get so much out of it, far more than you ever thought is possible. So no, Lauren, thank you very much for giving this chance to people to experience a different lifestyle and come out of hiding and start living a life that they can be proud of. So that's great.
Thank you. It's been really great to chat to you.
Absolutely. Cool. You guys out there, there is hope. There is a life waiting for you. And so who do you want to be when you grow up? It doesn't matter if you're 17 or 70. It is, if you're happy with your life, I'm pleased for you. But I doubt that, because otherwise you wouldn't be listening to that show to the end here. So no, go out there, have fun. And if you're in the UK and want to explore more of the UK, We Love Lucid is just a beautiful starting point for you. And just look down there into the description of the video and of the podcast. You've got all of Lauren's information down there. So just check her out and see if you don't gel with her adventures. So Lauren, again, thank you very much. And you guys out there, look after yourself. Bye.